Well, we have a great entertainer today. Let me tell you about him. Every week we are getting better and better. We have really top of the line entertainers, and this is why you're coming back to the show. So today we have our featured entertainer, had a successful 30-year career as a top trade show magician, which he threw away when he began producing and co-starring in the Magic Duel Comedy Show at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C. The Magic Duel has been the highest rated show in Washington, D.C. in multiple categories for 5 years on both Yelp and TripAdvisor, and has won 5 consecutive TripAdvisor's Traveler's Choice Award, placing it in the top 10% of attractions worldwide. So please, welcome to the virtual stage, magician Mark Phillips. Hello, Mark. It's all yours. We cannot hear you. I think that, there you go. Hello.
Okay. How's it going?
Wonderful. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing great. I actually couldn't hear your introduction. I don't know if that was just our connection or if it's the bigger connection, but wanted to let you know.
Okay, I think everybody else heard it. You guys heard it, yes? So I muted you before the show because you were making so much noise. So yes, so it was only you. But it's you now. It's yours. So. Okay, the puppy. All right, so the stage is yours. I'll leave you to it. Go ahead, have fun with it.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Well, it is a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to have an audience anywhere these days. That's the real truth. And I'd like to show you a couple of classics of magic. One of them truly an ancient classic of magic, a routine that goes back literally thousands of years to ancient Egypt. It uses these. Now, it's kind of hard to tell what they are right now, so let me separate them for you. These are cups. They're 3 little copper cups. They're all solid. They have a bottom on the inside, a top on the other side. I wouldn't want you to think I would use trapdoors or anything too unusual. It also gives me an opportunity to use a magic wand, which you don't often see these days. What I do is I tap that first little cup on the outer edge, and then I tap my fingertips, and I get this little baseball that appears and sits on top of cup number 1. This, by the way, is what happens if you put them in the dryer. I don't know if you knew that. They will actually shrink. Right, that's number 1. For ball number 2, I tap the cup, I spin twice, I tap my fingertips again, and I get a second ball, which sits on top of cup number 2. Now, again, it just kind of sits there. It doesn't do a whole lot unless you give it a squeeze. If you know how to give it a squeeze just right, it'll go through the cup. That's number 2. Of course, I need a third ball. I spin once, line these up. I spin once, twice, 3 times for the third. Oh, sometimes it happens all by itself. Yeah, I didn't expect that the first time either. Now, the little balls, they actually vanish just as easily as they appear. If I give that first one a tap, it just kind of fades away at the fingertips. The second one goes just as easily. You'll see it in the fingertips, even a little bit longer than the first one. And then it just vanishes. The last one's the most difficult, though, because my sleeve is getting very full at this point. They actually don't go up the sleeves. They go back beneath the cups. You see, that's number 1, that's number 2, and that is number 3. Thank you very much. The only problem that I found with the cups and balls is that it's a little confusing. I mean, there are so many things that you have to keep track of, and you have to listen to me, and I pretty much never shut up. So I'm going to simplify things a little bit at this point. I'll eliminate one of the cups. I'll eliminate one of the balls. That'll make it, I'll get rid of the ball. I wouldn't cheat you guys here watching very closely. 2 little cups and 2 little balls remain. A little tap and a little tap, and the balls switch places. They switch. But you guys are watching very closely. It's much more difficult when the camera doesn't blink, of course. It's much more impressive if I can get that ball to vanish from there, of course, and reappear there. You know what? I'm going to simplify it even more. I'll get rid of another ball. Actually, I'll get rid of both of them. I found, though, that if I put those 2 away, the middle cup comes back. If I put that ball away, the ball over here comes back. In fact, if I snap again, they both come back. But at this point, I'd love to give someone a chance to decide where they would like the little ball to appear. Usually they'll pick number 1 or number 2. They rarely pick number 3. I'm not really sure why that is, but I found if I put that one away, that is a little bit difficult to fill, and that one is a little bit difficult to fill as well, and that one is a little bit difficult to fill because they already have the baseballs in them. Thanks. Thank you. Well, that, as I mentioned, is a classic going back centuries. I want to show you one that, well, it's a classic that probably goes back a little over half a century, back to Chicago. The magic scene in Chicago back then was mostly in bars, and it used a lot of close-up magic. It was a very pioneering location for close-up magic. And it used, well, it used playing cards in this particular story too. Now, I call this the autobiographical card trick because it is actually a story. And it's a little bit about me. It's probably more than you have any interest in knowing about me, actually. I live in the Washington, D.C. area. That's what we say, the greater D.C. area. Now, I used to live right downtown in Washington, D.C. And I moved out a few years ago to a very, very nice suburb called Germantown. Now, the thing is, in DC, if you move out of the city, even if you just move right across the district line, they won't let you keep your driver's license. You have to get a new one. And if you know anything about DC, you know that this is where we invented bureaucracy. So anytime you have to do anything with the motor vehicles division, it's going to be an ordeal. So what I did was I got up very early and I shuffled over to the DMV one day. I shuffled over. Okay. And when I got there, I noticed there was a big stack of applications for the driver's license on the table. And so I took my application. I also noticed there was one of those take a number things, kind of looks like a big red snail. So I took my number. My number was 86, which I'll never forget. Oh, that's weird. That was actually my number, 86. Look at that. Yeah. And I looked up to see what number they were on, who they were helping at that point. And it was only number 17, which is a really low number. 17. That's very low. Well, that actually means it's going to be a very long morning. And what I do in situations like this, usually someone will be here and I'll have them cut the deck. Since no one's here, I'm just going to dribble the cards a little bit, give them a little bit of a cut. And that'll represent the passing of time. Now, obviously, there was a lot of time to pass, waiting for them to get to 86 from number 17. And so in situations like this, what I do is I think about my family. Now, I come from a family of terrible, terrible drivers. Yeah, I don't know what it is. My mom, in fact, was such a bad driver that one day a police officer actually pulled up beside her car while she was driving so he could look inside and see why she was kind of weaving around. And what he saw was that my mom had her knees on the steering wheel and she was knitting as she drove. I know. And so he drives up right beside her and he gets on his speaker and he goes, "Pull over, pull over." And my mom said, "No, it's a scarf. It's a scarf." Knitting humor there. Anyway, about that time they called my number. And so I went up to the window and I said, "Oh, hi, I have my 2 forms of identification. I have my 3 proofs of residence and I have my $45. Can I get my driver's license?" And the woman said, "No." I said, "Well, wait a second, why not?" She said, "Well, see, I just checked the documents. The cashier is actually the next line over." So I got in the next line behind these 1, 2, 3, 4 guys that were standing there. I actually thought they were a little bit overdressed, but I got in line behind them anyway. And when I got up to the counter, there was another one of those take a number things. And so I did. And my number, amazingly enough, was 86 again. It's 86. And I looked up to see what number they were on, and they were only on number 17 too. It's going to be a long afternoon, I guess. All right, well, let some more time pass, another cut. And this time I thought about my dad. Now, my dad, at least as bad a driver as my mom. In fact, one day he was driving home. It was on the Beltway. That's the big highway that we have that goes all the way around Washington, D.C. And my mom called him up and she said, "Dear, are you driving on the Beltway right now?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I am. Why do you ask?" And she said, "Well, I'm listening to the radio, and they just said on the radio there's a crazy guy driving the wrong direction." And my dad said, "A crazy guy? There's thousands of them." See, my dad would Anyway, about that time they called my number. I went up to the window. I said, "Hi, I have my 2 forms of ID and my 3 proofs of residence." I just showed her over there. "Here's my $45. Can I get my driver's license?" And this woman said no too. I said, "Well, wait a second, why not?" She said, "Well, you still have to do the eye test. The eye exam, that's the vision exam. It's in the next line over." So I got in the next line behind these 1, 2, 3, 4 women that were standing there. Again, I thought they were just a little overdressed for the DMV. I got in line behind them, got up to the counter. I took my number. Yeah, apparently my number is 86 today. I looked up to see what number they were on. They were only on number 17 too. It's officially the longest day of my life. One last family member to think about. That's my brother. Now, my brother is not just a bad driver. I'm sorry to have to admit this, but my brother's an idiot too. It's true. He was driving home and a police officer suspected he might have been drinking. Now, this is a serious thing. And so the officer pulled my brother over, went up to his window, he knocked on it, and he said to him, "Sir, I need to give you a breathalyzer test." And my brother, again, not a smart guy and not a smart decision here, he said, "Oh, I can't do that." The officer said, "What are you talking about, sir?" My brother said, "Well, see, I have asthma. It's very severe. I might have an attack and I would die." The officer was not amused. He said, "Sir, I'll give you a blood alcohol test." And my brother, again, not very smart, he said, "Oh, I can't do that either." He said, "Why not?" My brother said, "Well, I have hemophilia. It's very rare, but I might die." Now the officer was really unhappy. He said, "Sir, get out of your car and walk on this straight line right here." And my brother said, "Oh, I can't do that either." He said, "Why not?" My brother said, "Because I'm really drunk." Not a smart guy, my brother. I think I mentioned that. Oh, I did take the eye test right about then. 2020. It's the eye test 2020. So I said, "All right, I've got my 2 forms of ID. I've got my 3 proofs of residence. I've got my $45. Can I please get my license?" Now, I thought this woman was going to say no because, they all had. But it turns out she lived in Germantown, the town I lived in. Yeah, I know she lived in Germantown because she said 9999. Germantown. She said, "You still need to get your picture taken." So I got in line behind these 4 guys. They were all named Jack. It was the weirdest coincidence. I took my number. It was, 86. I looked up to see what number they were on. And that's how I know a driver's license is actually worth a lot more than 2 forms of ID, 3 proofs of residence, and $45. And that's my story. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Now you cannot hear me. Now you hear me. Okay.
Now I hear you.
That was great. That was great. Thank you so much, Mark. Hey, can you stay with us a little more?
Sure, absolutely.
And for those of you who want to find out more about you, we are happy to put a link here in the chat for your website. You still have your duel Magic Duel?
Yep, the Magic Duel. That's the show that we do for the public. Hopefully it'll be live again soon in the Washington, D.C. area. And we are doing some virtual shows now too through the Forum Virtual Theater.
Very good. All right. So we put the link here for the Magic Duel. It's right here in the chat, so you guys can check it out. Thank you for watching. If you would like to participate on our weekly happy hour show, you can find a link to sign up in the description below. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel by clicking right here, and don't forget to click on the bell so you are notified every time we publish new videos. To watch the next episode of the happy hour, go ahead and click here.